Hello everyone, this is Aryan from More Than Just a Game, and this is another chapter on our Unreal Engine 0 to Hero tutorial series. And in this video, we will cover how to add some input actions, add controls for your character, the character that you're controlling, or basically assigning any button to any action. So before Unreal Engine 5, we normally use the now called legacy input mode. In the project settings, you can go down and find input right here, and you can add your input actions and access mappings. But as you can see right over here, it says that it is deprecated. You can still use that, but it's better not to do it because in the near future it might completely be outdated and you wouldn't be able to use it anymore if you migrate your project to a newer version. And then there are some optimizations and enhancements in the new uh, input flow that Unreal Engine has, so it's basically better to use the new one. And the new one is called enhanced input. By default it is enabled when you create a new project. You can find some example usage of it right over here. We have something called input mapping context, and we have input actions. So for instance, for jump action, we have some things that we can set up. So the most important ones are the value type, whether it's just a boolean, a float, a vector 2D, or a vector 3D. So for things that you want to basically have a positive or negative value, or it could be set to 0 or maybe any value between +1 and -1, you could use the float. So for instance, if you want to add elevation to your flight movement, so imagine you have implemented flight in your game for your character and you want to add the elevation control so the player could go up and down. The elevation is something that could go from -1 to +1 because they might want to go up, or they might want to go down, or they might want to go in the same height as they are, so it's 0 basically. But for a jump, you're either jumping or you're not jumping. You have either called the action for jumping or you haven't, so it's a boolean. It could be true or false, so set it to boolean. And then there are some triggers. This is basically what sort of actions we want to listen to, we want the code to listen to. So the pressed would trigger the jump in action, and the released would be in the default jumping that's defined in Unreal Engine. It depends, the jump height depends on how long you hold the jump button. So this is why we are using released. But if you want to have just one static height for jumping, you could just use pressed and be done with it. As soon as the button is pressed, it would jump. Another example is moving. For instance, we have vector 2D because for moving, we are moving on a plane. We are not just going forward or backwards. We could go left and right. We could go forward and backward, and we can at the same time go forward and right. So this is basically moving in a plane. It's not a float or a boolean. So we are using vector 2D for that purpose. By we also I mean Unreal Engine default template, because I haven't done these. This is not my code. So yeah, imagine we want to add a new action. This new action for now is just gonna print something, so we can just easily duplicate the jumping one because this is the closest to what we're gonna have. Printing something on the screen is not something that needs some sort of access or anything. It's just a boolean, so we just use jump. I pressed Ctrl D to duplicate it, and I'm gonna call it IA. IA stands for input action. IA print. and I don't really need a use for the released one, so I'm just going to use the pressed one. And then we go to input mapping. This is input mapping context. This is where we use our input actions and we assign buttons to it. So for the jump action, as you can see, by default they have assigned a spacebar, touch 1 for mobile, and then the gamepad face button button for gamepads for controllers. And then there are some assignments for the move and look too. And then we are gonna add a new one. We are gonna add some buttons for the print one, and then we are gonna assign, let's say, 0. You can also find anything you wanna assign here. You can open keyboard, you can see all the keyboard buttons and all that. And one more thing to add is that you can see for the S button in the movement. Okay, let's also open the W. Okay, yeah, for the S button, as you can see, we have a negate modifier. This is because when the S is pressed, we want the value of IA move action to be negative, so we add a negate to it. Yeah, this should also be true for the A, because we want to go left and the positive direction would be right. So yeah, this is just something else I wanted to add that you have to use for float actions or vector actions. But for Boolean actions, which is what we're using for the print, there is no basically negative or positive values. It's either true or false. Okay, the next step, we would open up the third person character blueprint, because this is by default where the actions are assigned. So far we have set that in the input mapping context. We want to assign input action print to button 0, but we haven't set what happens after input action print is called. Right over here, this is the environment of a blueprint, by the way. Right over here, you can basically, I'm gonna make it simpler. I'm not gonna get into details of what casting is and all that. Event begin play is where this blueprint starts functioning basically. So I'm gonna just give you an example. I'm gonna say print begin when event begin play is called. As you can see, begin is printed on top left right over here. So this is basically what event begin play is. Then we are gonna access the controller. This is the class that is responsible for controlling our character. And so just ignore what this is. And then from our controller, we are gonna access the enhanced input subsystem. This is necessary. This is basically a subsystem that takes care of enhanced input. And we access it and we add our mapping context to it, so we can tell this subsystem that this is an input mapping context that I want you to work with. I want you to recognize this mapping context. And then right over here, we're going to give it the mapping context that we have created. And then as you can see, there are some default implementations. As you can see, enhanced input action, IA look. So when it's triggered, we are just gonna take care of looking, changing the position and rotation of camera relative to where our character exists. And then we have jump right down here, and then we have movement and all that. So yeah, we are gonna do a similar thing for our print one. We are gonna say IA print, and we have a started for it. We have triggered, started, ongoing, canceled, but because we are using the pressed trigger, we are gonna use a started. So for example, let me show you. If I had used the hold, for instance, instead of using the started here, I would have used either triggered or ongoing. But because we have selected the press trigger, I'm gonna use started. And what am I gonna do? I'm gonna print string, and I'm gonna say print action hold. Let's give it a shot. So I'm gonna play the game, and the previous actions already work. And as soon as I press the 0 button, it's gonna say print action code. I press it multiple times, and each time it says print action code. So this is how you can assign buttons to actions in your game and implement any sort of like complex or simple logic that you want to have in your game. And that's it about controls. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask us in the comments, and have fun coding.